Up next on the Amazing Art Show, Portraits with a Twist. Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Amazing Art Show. I'm your host, Angie Beam, and today we are doing portraits with a twist. And I will explain that more later. But let's talk about what you're going to need today, all right? You are going to need a set of paints. You could do acrylics, you could do watercolor, you could do oils if you really wanted to, but some kind of paints. Obviously water and brushes, paper towels, anything like that that you might need. You need some large, just white paper. If you're going to get super fancy, you might want to get like a watercolor paper or a heavy duty paper. What I have is not, and I'll show you kind of why it's better to have a heavy duty paper. And you'll also need some scissors and just a little piece of black construction paper. And I'll explain that more later as well. Okay, so let's get started. The twist on our project today has to do with the artist that we are going to be talking about. And he is an artist, I think he's one of the most unusual artists I've ever read about, and his artwork by far is the strangest artwork I've ever seen. And which goes along with the type of art that it is. And the type of art is called surrealism. And so surrealism is, it's kind of like from their dreams and from their imagination. So I don't know what kind of crazy dreams this artist was having, but some of the things that he would portray in his art, I just think to myself, oh my lands, I don't know. I don't think I could sleep if I was dreaming stuff like this. So the artist that we're talking about today is Salvador Dali. And one of the things about Salvador Dali that is really interesting is that he had this funky little mustache. And legend is that he believed he was, okay, I told you he was really weird. He's been weird ever since the day he was born. And so one of the things that he did was he grew his mustache out like this, and then people would ask him, why in the world do you have your mustache like that? And he said, oh, I can communicate with the aliens through my mustache. So as he grew older and older, his mustache got longer and longer, and it would point different directions, and sometimes he would put little crazy things on his mustache, just crazy stuff all the time. So I brought a couple pictures to show you. So there's one. Here's one when he's a little bit younger. Mustache, not so crazy yet. He's kind of has it tamed down there. And then here's another one. And you'll notice this is kind of when he starts bringing it up a little bit. And then some of the pictures you'll see, he'll have like little flowers attached right here on either end of his mustache. And he would always, well, I shouldn't say always, very frequently, he would have some kind of a strange animal with him. So you saw like a little lynx cat or something like that there, I'm not exactly sure. And then here it looks like he's got a rooster on his shoulder. So very unusual man. Sometimes he would even just do weird things just to be weird. He would do, you know, interviews with people, and he would wear a spacesuit just for no reason, because he was just very much an individual. He was like, I'm going to be myself because everyone else is taken, and I'm going to be as weird as I want to be. And so I would definitely say that he cornered the market on that. All right, so let's look at a little bit of his artwork. So this is kind of an example of surrealism. So this is called The Elephants, and I apologize, my poster is not the most beautiful in the world, but it's the only one that I had to grab. And so you will notice, keeping in mind that this is like a dreamlike, very much from your imagination kind of a scene. And so in it you see these very crazy looking elephants that are very bony and skinny, and they've got these forever long legs, even longer than a giraffe's legs. And so, and you've got these objects that are floating above them just in space. There's nothing holding them up there, and he liked to do that a lot. Things would just gravitate, and they would just kind of, you know, levitate right there in the air with nothing else holding them up. And so there's one, and then this is probably his most famous. And this one is called The Persistence of Memory. And what kind of inspired this one, this is a good story. One day he was sitting outside and it was really, really hot, and he had brought a sandwich. And for whatever reason, because he's weird, he was playing with his food. don't do it. And he was taking his pencil and he was lifting up the cheese on his sandwich, and he was noticing like how the cheese was all melty and kind of falling and drooping down, and that kind of gave him the idea for these clocks that are melting, because he was very much a fan of time. Really didn't mean a whole lot to him. He kind of did his own thing, and he showed up when he felt like showing up, and so time wasn't a big deal to him. So he liked to, you would see these kind of reoccur in his artwork a lot. All right, so today we are going to be doing some Dali portraits. All right, so don't look at my example yet. Okay, so let's talk about just kind of getting things laid out first. And so what you're going to need is definitely your examples that you want to have that you can kind of look at. And you can be as serious with this as you would like to, or if you want to make it more like a caricature, you could do that as well. I even brought a caricature if you want to check that out. It's a little bit wrinkled, but if you want to, when you're doing a caricature, you kind of take features and then exaggerate them. So you'll notice that his nose is quite bulbous. He's got these huge bags under his eyes. His head's like super elongated. All right, and then look at that mustache. It's like going clear up past his eyes. All right, so kind of decide how serious you want to be with it, and then we're going to go from there. So if I were you, I would just kind of start up on the head, and I've already kind of given myself a few guidelines to go by. So I started, and I actually was looking at this one, and I just kind of looked at the shape of his hair. He kind of had his hair all slicked back, and I wanted to make his portrait, and it's kind of up to you on how much you would like to do this, but you know, you can do just an upper body portrait to where you're only doing, you know, maybe just from the chest up. Or you could do a full body if you would like to. It's kind of up to you. You could have it where he's holding some kind of a little animal, since he really liked to do that a lot. It would also be kind of an interesting idea. And the one thing that I will say I don't have a lot of experience with is trying to make him, because in my photo that I was looking at, he looks a lot older, and that's hard. It's hard to make someone like age someone. And so mine, even though I tried to work on that, it didn't turn out, he doesn't look that old to me. He looked more like his younger one that I was looking at. But I did like it, so I'm rolling with it anyways. So one of the other things that Dali is very famous for is he would play up being in front of the camera, and so he would really exaggerate his facial expressions. And so you'll, like in this one that we were looking at, he's got, his eyes are like bulging out of his head. He's like, has this surprise look on his face. Sometimes he would just make these really unusual kind of facial expressions. So those are some things that you might want to think about. You could kind of maybe make the project kind of about, you know, expression and what kind of mood are you trying to portray on your paper. Now, I told you that we were going to be having, there was a kind of a twist to this project. And some of you have probably figured it out already. But for those of you that haven't, at the end, you'll notice that as I'm drawing, and when I get down especially closer to the mouth, I'm going to be missing a very important part of Salvador Dali, and that's going to be his mustache. And that is because we're going to add his mustache on later. And we'll talk about that when we get there. All right? So I'm pretty much doing everything but that. You know, don't forget, kind of break things down into shapes. And I'm doing him where he is wearing a suit. You obviously, you could go get mom or dad to go with you, and you can look online. There are pictures of him wearing all kinds of interesting ensembles. But I kind of liked the one of him with the cat creature. he just looks very interesting to me right there. So I'm doing him in the suit, and he's got a tie on, and he's also got some kind of like fancy little vest underneath. And I'm going to put a little pattern on his tie. All right, so I'm just about done. I've done everything. I'm missing the mustache. Remember when you are drawing your portrait, we've talked about portraits before, whenever you kind of get your head shape going, that the eyes are going to go just about in the middle, and then if you'll take a measurement, just kind of eyeball it from where you put the eyes to the bottom of the chin, about halfway in between there is where the bottom of the nose should go. And then measure from the bottom of the nose to the chin, and then about halfway is where the mouth should go, like the middle part of your mouth. So kind of use those measurements, and remember your ears always fit in between where your eyes and the bottom of your nose are. All right? Okay, so you'll notice I did not add the little cat-like creature, which is really hard for me to do because you know I really like cats a lot, but I did not add that because I kind of thought it would take away from the mustache. So, but that's totally up to you. You can decide what you would like to do. All right, so once you get that all done, I want you to get your black Sharpie marker, and I want you to go back and you're going to outline everything. And make sure, and I will tell you, I don't know what it is about my kids this year, and Miller kids, if you're out there listening, I'm talking about you. They got really busy this year about rushing through. Like, they take the time to draw it and it looks so awesome, and then they go back to outline it, and I don't know, they're just so excited to get it done, I guess. I don't know, but they are just rushing through it, and then you just have to spend a whole lot of time going back and erasing your pencil lines. So take your time and do it right the first time, and then there's hardly any pencil lines for you to have to erase. And I tried to add some little wrinkles in there on the neck too. So you might want to think about what kind of expression. I've obviously kind of got a surprised kind of expression on his face, but you might want to do something different. Make it your own. All right, so you're going to get finished outlining everything. Don't forget to go back and think about what kind of a pattern you might want to add on the tie. And also, there was a little bit of a discussion in my classroom about boys and eyelashes. And boys, you have eyelashes, just like girls. So a lot of the boys were saying, no, when you put the eyelashes on him, he looks like he's a girl. So maybe don't put the eyelashes quite so big, but they have eyelashes. So on his, what I ended up doing, because I did the one where he looks like he's a little bit older, so it was a little harder to see his eyelashes because his lid came down kind of over where your eyelashes would kind of be. So what I did instead is I just kind of did a heavy kind of dark line that would kind of like represent, you know, that he's got kind of lashes there, instead of drawing out each one individually. So it kind of looked like that. So I just made this right in here kind of real dark. And same thing on the other side. And don't forget, when you're doing the eye, you want to make sure that you do the iris and the pupil. The pupil is the black part that's colored in. All right. Let's see, last couple little things. All right, now your paints. it's going to kind of be up to you to decide how you would like to do your paints. You might want to try to do it fairly realistically, you know, meaning you want to try to mix some skin colors, or, you know, you might want to be a little more creative and think outside the box a little bit, and you might want to do, you know, you could use maybe some unusual colors to do some shading. So you might kind of think about that, like where would shadows be falling on him. So usually what I do when I'm trying to decide where I'm going to shade something is I'll kind of think to myself, okay, which direction is the lighting coming from? And so I kind of, in my head, I kind of make up a little scenario of where the light's coming from. So in mine, I'm going to say that the light is shining from this direction, so I'm going to do some shading over here. All right, so the other thing that I noticed, oh, and I forgot to do my pattern. I'm just going to do one real quick. Okay, all right, so we are all good, and I would erase any pencil marks that I need to, and I really am pretty good on my pencil marks, so I'm just gonna rock and roll from here. All right, so your paints. Be thinking about whether you want it to be a little more realistic, or if you would rather it be, you know, a little more funky. You could even do some kind of like a monochromatic, where it's, you know, different shades and tints of the same color. And I always use my lid to help me kind of mix colors. And so I'm going to start out with his skin color. Now at the beginning, I told you about how, depending on what kind of paper you use, if you use a better quality paper, your paper will not do what mine is about to do. And that is when it gets wet, it kind of, I don't know, kind of gets this grayish kind of look to it. You know, when you start to apply the paint, if you do it real watery, which I didn't want it to be like super paint looking. I wanted it to be more, I didn't want it real opaque. I wanted it a little more transparent. So I'm adding a little bit of water to it. And you can actually go right over your marker lines. But you'll start to notice as I paint that my paper will kind of start to look weird. If you use a little bit of a heavier paper, you know, like a, you know, maybe mom or dad has access to some, you know, just kind of a thicker, I hate to say cardboard, but kind of like tag board kind of a paper, that works really nice, especially for water painting. Now if you're doing acrylics, it's probably, you're not going to have this problem. Your paper will get kind of wet, but you're not going to have the problem of it kind of, it gets all these little spots on it. Which, you know, maybe that's going to age my Dali and he's going to look like he's a little older like I wanted originally. And I was thinking, you know, I know sometimes, especially in class, you guys get real frustrated because it's not looking exactly the way you wanted it to. And this is a prime example of, you know, sometimes it's okay if it doesn't look exactly how you wanted it to. You roll with it, and because sometimes you'll be pleasantly surprised and you'll like it even more than what you were planning on doing. All right, so I'm just basically doing kind of a wash of a skin tone, kind of all over. I'm leaving this very side area over here without anything on it because I actually am going to come in there, and that's where I'm going to be doing a little more of the shading. All right. And for some strange reason, there was some orange already on my mixing plate, and so now he's going to be a little more tan than I had expected. But that's all right. All right, and I'm also going to leave kind of the inside part of the ear because I'm going to be doing some shading inside there as well. And if you happen to get, kind of like I did, that little accidental color in there that you weren't expecting, if you'll get a little bit of water and some color, you can at least dilute it a little bit. All right. Okay, and then neck down in here. Now, as far as you deciding what, I want you eventually to paint everything. So kind of keep in mind the choices that you're making on the clothes will kind of affect what color you might want to put back here in your background. And he's got a very big like freckle of color up here on his head. Okay, for my shading, I'm actually going to use some purple. And I don't know why. These are my new paints, which I was super excited about. They look all nice and pretty. But my purple is, it's like this very bluish purple. So it looks a little bit blue, but it's purple. And then, like I said, this is kind of going to be where my shadows are. And I know it looks a little weird at first when you're like, what is she doing putting that purple over there? And you're not going to put it everywhere. It's just going to kind of go in places where there would be shadows. So think about, and you might even go see if mom or dad might be your model. Or what I did when I was painting mine is I went and I kind of made sure that the light was on that side of my face, and I kind of looked to see, you know, where are the shadows occurring, so that you can, you know, kind of know where you need to put your purple. All right. I'm a little purple intensive on this edge over here. All right, and then don't forget he had these very, very dark features, dark eyebrows, dark hair. So I just did some black for that. He also, and it's a little bit hard to see because my photos that I have are black and white, but you know, he also had a little bit of gray in his hair, so you might kind of consider that as well. All right, so I'm going to keep painting, and while I do that, why don't we go to today's quote. Our art quote is from Salvador Dali. Drawing is the honesty of art. There is no possibility of cheating. It is either good or bad. Okay, so we're back, and I've been working on mine, and I'm just about, oh, this? Oh, that's the next part of our project. I forgot to tell you about it. Okay, so this is where your little black piece of paper is going to come in handy. And it's up to you to kind of decide how crazy you want to get with your mustache. All right, I'm going to turn it this way. So, you know, I'll borrow mine that I'm wearing. You could try, you know, something like this. I don't know. He doesn't look very Dali-ish to me. He looks a little like Western or something. So you might try something like that. I kind of like that. I'm kind of digging that. All right. Okay. Or, you know, you might want to go with that kind of straight up. So all you're going to have to do for that part is you're going to take your paper, your black sheet of paper, and I want you to fold it in half because your shape that you're going to be making is going to be symmetrical. So a great way to do that is to always fold your paper in half, and then you can go off the line of symmetry. So on the side where the fold is, so that means it's not the flappy side, but it's the fold side. You're going to start there, and from there, I want you to kind of think about the shape of the mustache that you're wanting to make. And because I can't draw upside down, I'm going to draw this way. So I like to keep it, like if you were doing one like this, you want a little bit of a bump in it. So you want to come kind of like when you were making hearts in school. So you're going to come up just a little ways before you go out to make whatever shape. So let's say I'm going to try a different one. I'm going to do one that just kind of points out. But I'm going to keep it pretty thin. And then you kind of copy the way you went in. So where you've got that bump here at the top, you're going to kind of copy it down here at the bottom. So you'll see a little, I know it's kind of hard to see on the black paper, but you'll see here in a second. All right, so then you can get your paper and then your scissors, and you're just going to follow the cut. Make sure that you do not cut up the fold. You're just going to cut into the fold. And hold your pieces together really, really nice and tight while you're cutting, because they tend to want to slip around a lot. And this is kind of hard to hold, so be careful. All right. I hope this one turns out good. All right. Here we go. Oh yeah, I think that's going to be a nice one. Okay, so let's see. We'll try. We'll decide which one we're going to do. Okay, here's this one. Still a good choice, I think. And then here's this one. I think we have a winner. All right. So all you're going to need to do is you're going to put a little bitty dot of glue just right on the center where that fold is, and that will go right there in the center, because you want to leave these so that you can actually kind of play with them, and you can make them kind of just by running your fingers along the paper. You can actually make it kind of stick up. So I've got a little bitty piece of tape for mine because I knew it wouldn't dry in time. So we'll kind of see what mine looks like. All right. So we've got his mustache all on. So that is your artist portrait with a twist. Thank you so much for joining us. Now go out and make some amazing art.